Hi, I'm Brian Dipert, Editor-in-Chief of the Augmented Vision Alliance, here at the January 2015 Consumer Electronics Show. I'm here with John Feland, founder and CEO of Argus Insights, a market analysis firm. Hi, John.
Hey, Brian.
Hey. How's CES going for you so far?
It's been fantastic. It's great to see what new things have come out, the advancements that were only talked about last year, being able to touch and feel and play with this year. And it's been really great to connect with people who are actually driving that innovation at the show today.
Specifically, I'm curious, what are you seeing from a embedded vision, practical computer vision aspect here at CES?
Cameras on everything, right? Multiple resolutions. We're not to the point where it's no longer a question of whether to include it in vision. It's basically how to include embedded vision in these products today. And it's been fun to see the experiments, things ranging from small ball-shaped robots with cameras so they can give game footage as they roll around the house, all the way up to new products in baby monitoring that we're seeing from Kodak. Multiple different kind of categories, all enabled by vision in creative ways.
Okay. You've historically followed the mobile electronic space, smartphones, tablets, etc. One of the things that caught my eye was Dell's new tablet that has Intel's RealSense technology embedded in it. I know Intel's keynote yesterday afternoon wowed a lot of people as well with all the computer vision applications that were shown there. What are you seeing in the mobile electronic space that caught your eye here?
It's interesting to see how successful Intel has been in driving RealSense into products, tablets, laptops, desktops, and HP Sprout has been an interesting example of integrating that type of embedded, that 3D vision with depth to kind of help capture and create and navigate these kinds of environments. And products from Acer are also included in laptops, their Black Nitro series, and then Dell's tablet. What's been interesting, Intel's done a great job of ensuring vision's out there, and they're slowly layering the applications on top of it. And so what that does is it gives consumers a chance to learn a new way of interacting in a way that some products like Leap Motion was a very promising embedded vision enabled navigation tool, but it was pretty much limited to navigation piece. By bringing the RealSense in, especially with the whole army of consumers that have been trained by Microsoft Connect, now you start to have something that allows for really intuitive interaction with these products. But as you're seeing with partnerships with people like 3D Systems, 3D Me Now, where consumers can start to then capture elements, including their face, in real time, interact with those objects. Now you're putting high-end creation tools in the hand of consumers to move beyond just passive content consumption. It's like, I don't want to watch Netflix, I want to make my own videos. I want to put my talking head on these things. And you start to open up new things for consumers, all enabled by vision.
Okay. How about augmented reality? I was over at the Qualcomm booth yesterday as well, which is right next to Intel's booth.
Yes.
And of course, with Vuforia, AR was all over the place there. Anything at AR catch your eye or beyond Intel in the mobile space?
What's interesting, when you think about 20, 30 years ago, the chief AR applications were in government programs and wiring diagrams and helping out auto mechanics. It was about training and oversight. Now we've moved to the point where computationally, from a vision and a processing standpoint, VR becomes seamless to the user. And AR too, sorry, VR and AR both together. And whether it's augmented or whether it's immersive like the Gear VR headset or the Oculus Rift, one of the things that happens with the augmented reality piece is the ability to start projecting into scene for consumers means it starts with games and it starts with these kind of professional uses we talked about. But I think there's huge opportunities that you're starting to see kind of bubble up to the top, where these devices become ways to provide support, ways to add context to a reality that's not there. It's like, where should I sit? Okay, you imagine you're walking down the aisle in the airplane and you're on Southwest and there's real-time feeds telling you which seats you should be are actually best for the flight to the Las Vegas. Or you're trying to diagnose why the baby's crying, but AR features are integrating with other systems in your home around humidity and temperature, etc., to give you a kind of a status update of what's going on. The ability to overlay information to help drive consumer action or entertainment because of AR, it's just going to be fantastic to see where it's going.
Well, so how about VR? I just came from the South Hall, and the line coming from Oculus's booth is like a mile long.
Yes.
And there are 10, 15 other VR competitors also displaying down there. Cameras in VR, what are you seeing there?
So it's interesting. I think VR today is where wearables were last year. A few key players. Next year we're going to see even more as people start to realize that the technology and processing and the toolkits are there to do all types of VR kind of environments. Oculus has hit the killer app with the gamers. Samsung's trying to make it a little more mainstream with the exercise integration and things. And the line at Samsung wasn't as long as Oculus, but still a long line. I think what's interesting about that, when you start meshing those types of technologies with the vision, the imaging, the position, location, as well as this kind of new graphic technologies that are out there, much high resolution displays, because when you start creating that stereoscopic view, the pixels have to fade. Because anything that kind of gives away that the VR is more V than R makes people sick, lowers the adoption rate, all those kinds of things. We're to the point now where the number of vendors is going to expand rapidly until the killer apps come out and figure out how to do that. And the poor man VR, where people take their smartphones and put them in front of their eyes with the right mirrors to kind of create the stereoscopic screens, are giving developers the tools very quickly to start making those experiences. But we're not there yet. I think we're at the, it's a bit like RealSense in terms of we're at the enabling technology stage, where now anyone can get a high resolution set of VR goggles at a reasonable price. Now what? What stories can we start telling with that? How do we start sharing those experiences? And you combine that with, these increasing number of wide range or immersive vision capture tools, where GoPros in 360 configurations, where you've seen these cluster mounts for GoPros, where it's 8 GoPros all capturing at the same time. Or there's a product come from a company called Vision Mobile that's a 360 kind of active camera unit. When you start to have those types of things, how do you consume the data? How do you consume those realities? Well, you don't have, there's a few curved monitors, but nothing gives you that 360 immersive experience. Now that we're able to capture reality in 360 in high resolution, to be able to consume that, imagine VR goggles where you're going to that European vacation in your living room, walking through the environments in real time. Or you're a doctor trying to do field triage, but because of the immersive realities that you're able to share across and be able to pull the data out of those scenes, the goggles become a way to share that in a way and then bring out with the vision capture pieces to create, it's no longer, this has to be virtual. It becomes a representative reality or a displaced reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're nicely leading into my next question each time, because I was actually going to ask you about wearables next. Speaking of popular booths, I walked by the GoPro. I tried to walk past the GoPro booth on Monday afternoon. There were hundreds of people shouting "GoPro, GoPro, GoPro" at the top of their lungs for a baseball cap. It was mind blowing.
That's what they do.
Of course, life logging cameras are all over the place here at CES. A couple of member meetings ago, and it's up on the website, there was a very good presentation from the CTO of a company that is doing a 360-degree panorama life logging camera with computer vision used to stitch the various images together. What are you seeing in wearables, either life logging cameras specific or more general, that involves computer vision?
So you've got the GoPro piece, you've got these life logging pieces, you've got HTC surprisingly has a new camera out at CES. Why is a mobile company doing cameras? Because this notion of capturing and sharing what's happening to us on a regular basis is increasing popularity, right? It's not just the Instagrams, it's Instagram 7.0, and how does that become? So it ends up being an interesting opportunity, because you end up with gigabytes, terabytes of footage. What do you do with it? How do you find what's important? And so actually, I think there's a huge opportunity within the embedded vision community for that event detection, things of that sort, because I can take 6 hours of footage of my newborn baby, but I don't have time to go back and find all those pieces. And there's a couple of cute gurgles along the way, but that's 6 hours of imaging. How do and I don't want to throw it away either. And so what's the right way to help me as a consumer, or even professional, curate and then create those kind of produced products from that information is a huge opportunity, I think, in the space, because we're only going to see more cameras. Start off now as predominantly as ways to capture our own pieces, but you're seeing them actually show up in law enforcement. They're showing up in legal proceedings. We're starting to capture everything. The surveillance state is actually starting with the surveillance self. And when that continues to become more and more common, where we all have our cameras on our arms or the Google Glass, maybe less so on the Google Glass, poor kids, though Intel's got the responsibility for the next generation. It's interesting to see them move more and more into vision. We then have a problem of, we solve the collection issues. We have all this information. Now how do we analyze and make use of that information to drive that entertainment or that insight or that engagement or that action? And I think that's where the huge opportunity is, because I think one of the things we're seeing at CES is the cameras are here, and they're here to stay. And yeah, we can push more megapixels. Yeah, we can make them more power efficient, so that you don't have to carry a Honda generator with your GoPro, because those things heat up something fierce when they start really capturing. 8K, 16K, 360, full, 720. You get these balls of kind of capturing. Well, maybe not full. There's the panoramic piece, but then there's the whole, how do you capture your shoes as well as the top of your head? Not that I don't do that necessarily. But yeah, it's interesting to see where it's all going. Okay. And I think the capture, helping people make sense of all that vision information is really where the next frontier is. And that's what I hope to see next year at CES. It's how all these like GoPro, it's great to get a baseball cap, but how to use those powers for good or for entertainment, or actually even better, good entertainment. Mm-hmm.
So speaking of surveillance, that was the last thing that I wanted to ask you about. Was there are a couple new startups in the consumer surveillance space that are explicitly promoting face recognition in their feature set. Not just that there's somebody in the house, but it's your daughter and she's in the kitchen,
right?
And it's 4 PM. So
yes,
it's the feature sets are really growing there as well. And I know that this is an area that you've begun focusing on. On the Alliance website is a presentation John gave at the December Alliance member meeting on vision and consumer surveillance. So what have you seen here at the show in that area?
It's interesting because we've been tracking kind of Internet of Things, home automation for quite a while now. And it's the consumer surveillance sector of that entire market that's driving the most engagement from consumers. It's where the most revenue is right now from our point of view. And it's also where the biggest opportunities to create experiences that people jive with. But it's interesting to see where the constellation kind of sits. The ability of bringing that kind of facial recognition piece and again, the event detection, if someone's at the door, well, we've been watching the door for 6 hours. What do you mean someone's at the door? Oh, it's the cat again. And we talked about cat monitoring being actually a key feature for a lot of these things.
Killer app.
Yeah. Which one of the cats is it? Is it Fluffy or is it Bob? Right? Forget my daughter. What are my cats doing? And those pieces, it's interesting because within the home, again, it's the surveillance self, not the surveillance state. But within the surveillance self, they're in your home. You can surveil and recognize your kids. That's okay. How that becomes interesting is how do you then report on that and then act on that? And who's there with your daughter? Is it her boyfriend again? Why is your wife around? And wait, who's at the door? And how do you recognize? One of the interesting things to see within those spaces is that it's one thing to use for monitoring, but when you start using it for entry, which some of these startups are talking about doing, where they recognize your face at the door. Oh yeah, it's John. Come on in. They're misremembering, well, they're not misremembering, they're probably forgetting or not aware of when Google tried to do the face recognition login on the Android phones, how easy that was to defeat. You could almost hold up family pictures to your phone and unlock it. Or if your kids look enough like you, there's enough features that rhymed enough where your 4-year-old could actually unlock your phone. So the same kind of issue comes in here in terms of the false positives and the false negatives that come out of it. And it's something that consumers really have a hard time understanding, because when we say a feature like face detection, consumers, 100%. Wait, I know who that is. They expect it to work at the same level that our own face detection does. Right? Hey, that's Frank from, high school. They don't know that. And that becomes a challenge. I mean, we see this all the time with Facebook recognizing faces in our pictures and us helping and training Facebook to tag those pictures as the right people. The number of times my daughters show up with my name is quite humorous still. They're not very happy about it, especially when they become teenagers. But when you think about where these pieces rolling out, managing consumer expectations as we continue to climb that performance curve is going to be important. And these startups are going to have, it's a nice feature. It's going to be interesting to see how consumers actually respond to it.
Okay. So for the benefit of our audience that may not be familiar with Argus Insights, can you give a bit of background as to the company, specifically how you do market analysis through social media?
Sure, definitely. So we take a really novel approach to market research. Rather than talking to the people that make the products, we talk to the people that use it. And we pull consumer behaviors from social media, consumer reviews, basically any place we can find where consumers have felt compelled enough to share about their experiences with products. And use that to figure out who's winning, who's losing, and why. And we're able to slice that information, not only understand the brands and at the product level across multiple product categories, like we talked about Vision. We've done it for tablets, smartphones for a number of years, washers, dryers, paper towels, diapers. Mobile and diapers overlap quite a bit. Coverage is important to both. But what's interesting in all that data is we're able to not only pull out what the consumer's experience is, but also understand how the channel performance is going retailer-wise. Because a drop cam at Best Buy isn't the same as a drop cam at Staples. And we see that in the data. And we're able to then blend in the Twitter and the Facebook data to understand what the brand promise is, connect that to the reality. And we successfully, just about every chance we've gotten, we connect our metrics of the consumer experience to the revenues for the company themselves. And I actually have embarrassed Wall Street's estimates of iPhone sales almost every quarter for 3 years. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
We have fun.
You pretty much exhausted my list of questions. Is there anything else vision related at CES specifically or more generally that you'd like to share with the audience today?
One of the things that we heard a lot actually was not so much the products being showed, but how they're being shown. We've been talking a lot with one of the people who actually make the exhibit booths, and their questions mirror that of a lot of retailers. How do we make sense of traffic? How do we help the people who hired us to create these experiences at the show understand what the engagement was? And so there's a different type of analytics that's taking place that's relying on vision. They're actually, it's an opportunity. They're trying to understand what's the best way to bring those people in to the experience, measure that, and then report out on the results for their target customers. And that's a kind of the story behind the story, I think, because they're all trying to figure out how do they pull off-the-shelf technologies in a way and then process that information to give their clients a scorecard. You got this year you had this much exhibit space. Next year I think you should do this. Why? Because the people are all crowded right here. Okay, how do we do that? And so we actually at the December member meeting, God, what was the name of the company that showed? All their retail mapping about how you could, show effectively the game films of who came in the store and what sales did well, becomes really important not only from a shoplifting standpoint, which is interesting in its own right. That's a classic use, but they're able to filter out the people in a way to show where the hot spots were. The exhibit folks are interested in that same type of information, especially how do you integrate that in a booth in a non-obtrusive way to actually help understand, was it worth the time and money we spent to be here at CES? And then how do we then follow up in a way that makes sense and know what we need to do next year? Because you think about it, this is a show like any other, and Vision gives the companies here a chance to kind of do the Nielsen rating for their booth, for their experience, to understand what they need to improve next time, so they can drive that engagement and drive their own revenue growth.
Well, John, it's always a lot of fun to talk to you.
Vice versa.
I always learn a lot, and I'm always entertained as well. I was wondering if you're going to weave cat cams in, and you did, so good job with that.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important. It was interesting because not only they're cat cams, but Motorola got an Innovation Award this year for a smart dog collar. Now, given the size of the collar and the thickness of the leather attached to the wearable to make the wearable itself seem small, I think it was for some kind of like Great Dane or something.
Right.
I don't see a toy poodle using this because it's actually bigger than their head. So it's almost like it's like an old Far Side of the tracking collars kind of a thing, where it's like, it's a bear talking to his wife, and she says, "Where have you been hanging out with that Jane Goodall woman again?" Got this big, huge collar. So yeah, I think pets are a growing category, and so we're talking with one of the Alliance members to talk a little bit about could they figure out a way to help do automatic capture of cute cat videos as part of their services. Because we know the internet's driven by cat videos, and so if there's a way you can create a cat video as a service opportunity, I think that'd be huge.
Killer app.
Killer app.
Thanks to all of you for tuning in and watching this video. The Vision and Retail presentation that John mentioned a few minutes ago, if you take a look at the description for this video, I'll make sure that I include a link for that, as well as for all of John's presentations that are up on the Alliance website. So John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and come visit the website regularly for new content.